What is the main incentive or motivation in order to develop within an organization the teamwork? And also, what is the role of the salary variable or factor?
Okay. I think the role of teamwork is really defined by the customer. How can the organization more effectively distribute product to its customer? And not distribute, just manufacture, etc., design, manufacture, distribute to the customer. And can you do that quickly enough and effectively enough so that you're competitive with those who are selling against you? Do we have the right information from the customer set? Are we being able to take that information and the organization has learned what to do with it? And in fact, can we get the right people together who will be able to work that problem most effectively? And I think it's been demonstrated over time that quality has helped people come together. But the teaming or the teamwork is what really makes it successful. Because one person can have a good idea, but a team can make it a reality. And so you really need to have the team collaborating with each other between disciplines to be the most effective. And again, I think it's driven by the market, and what your company wants to do with the market against the competitors ought to be the key.
Now we're going to Costa Rica. This is coming from the State University, distance education. Good morning. We're sending you a greeting from Costa Rica, and thank you, Mr. Hoffmann, for your beautiful presentation. The concept of creative attention that is usually interpreted in a very negative way, would you please give us some kind of example to explain to us the difference between this creative attention and the emotional tension? Can you explain that? Or I guess stress is what they're talking about, yeah, creative stress.
Okay. If I hope I understand the question and I'm responding correctly. And what I'm understanding is that there's a tension to have this creative ability within the organization to emerge, as well as probably some emotional tension which says, let's not change things or let's not move from what's comfortable. That tension is probably very good, because there is the old adage that you don't learn anything unless there is some tension. However, I think as you look at releasing the creative tension of the people is where, in fact, you will get your breakthroughs in either improved quality, you'll get your breakthroughs in introducing new products to the market, and clearly it's where you will, I think, be successful as a business getting the results. And the more successful you are, the more engaged your people become. If you look at the other side, the stress that might create, is that I think we have to fall back to what Peter Senge was talking about, with what is our mental model, and are we really examining why we've created this tension for ourselves? Is it something that's personal, or is it something that we just believe in? Is it how we're viewing the world? So we really need to take with real rigorously look at what our mental model is telling us and say, are we being emotional for the wrong reasons? But I hope that answers, or it helps answer the question, because that's what I thought I heard asked. Thank you.
Gracias. La siguiente llamada la recibimos
Next call is coming
del
from
Instituto Tecnológico Superior Apatzingán,
Mexico.
Michoacán. Escuchamos.
Muy buenos días a todos.
Good morning to everybody. In addition to the initial investment, when you apply the 5 disciplines that AT&T applied in order to become such a wonderful, intelligent organization, what other motivations do you, like salary increases and compensations or punishments, did your company apply for your employees to really become involved in modifying and changing the organization forward? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the compliment on saying what a wonderful organization we do have. We do have, but we're also one that's in the throes of learning and becoming a learning organization. The role of compensation within becoming a learning organization or effective organization may not be one that am an expert on. However, there is enough, I believe, empirical evidence as well as the number of studies that have been done that as people believe they can contribute more to the business and become part of the business by understanding where the business is going, what the business stands for, understanding what they stand for and what their values are, and where there is alignment, that in fact there's much more employee satisfaction than is generated by giving people more money. There has to be enough money, clearly, to meet the needs of the individual with their family obligations, etc. And so I'm not talking about sustenance levels of compensation. But I don't think that we have gone beyond what we would call the average market pay scales within our organization to achieve the success that we have. Meaning that our compensation people do look at what is the market paying for like work, and then we look at ourselves and say, do we pay ourselves higher than that, lower than that, or somewhere around average? And actually we are somewhere just above average, but not on the high range for the type of work that we do. So that's how our management compensation is approached. Clearly our represented employees are contracted through the union, and we do look at those jobs in exactly the same way of what type of what type of market are they working in, what type of industry they're working in, etc., and what are the average wages, and then we'll target our wage and salaries and compensations for those levels. So we really haven't used it as quote-unquote a motivator to change and become a learning organization as much as keep it at market and then create the environment, or the leaders create the environment where the people can excel.
Viajamos ahora a Panamá. Le damos la bienvenida.
We are now going to Panama, and we welcome the Technological University. Good morning. We want to ask whether there is some kind of relationship between the educational and formal training of the employees and the possibility of learning new ways of work in the new markets, because in Latin America we have a lot of staff that has a lower educational level, and on a global level you really need to have people more and more trained and more educated with a higher level of education.
And I would agree with that. I agree that people need to continue to learn. But go back to the example that I referred to in the first segment, where there was this particular business, a relatively small business, but the majority of the people actually did not graduate from high school. But they were really driven by a common focus on providing the best product and service to their customer. And through working together as an organization and understanding what their goals were, they were able to accomplish that. And so I don't believe it's always the formal education. However, I am also a very strong advocate that these people wanted to learn. And so there was the personal commitment, or as Peter Senge would say, the personal mastery, that these people had to learn, and that they worked as a team and became a team who learned, and so they became a learning team to be able to produce these products. I believe that as organizations that we need to assist our employees with giving them learning experiences, not necessarily training, but learning experiences, which will allow them to be more successful in working together and producing those products. So I believe that over time, the organization is responsible for creating those experiences. I don't believe that we have to have everyone in the organization at the same educational level. But to be global, I think we need to be able to articulate and then at least hire those people who understand and can help communicate and help the organization learn how to be successful.
La siguiente llamada
The next
viene
call
de
is coming
Guadalajara,
from
Jalisco.
Guadalajara,
Damos nuestra más
Mexico.
cordial bienvenida a los
Welcome
participantes del Centro de Estudios Universitarios Veracruz.
from
Adelante.
Veracruz.
Buenos días.
Buenos días.
La pregunta es,
The question is, in Mexico, the majority of the enterprises are small. They're micro or small companies, small enterprises. How can you apply these concepts in small enterprises, businesses?
I believe that even large companies are made up of small businesses or small work units, and so I think we have the same opportunity. Sometimes I think small organizations probably have a greater opportunity depending on how the leadership is viewing the importance of learning and how the leadership defines what it is the business wants to do and then engages the people. And I believe there are many different ways of doing that. However, I think engaging the people is critical. And again, in small organizations, you can do it much more effectively and much more quickly.
Muchas gracias. Tenemos una última
Now we have
llamada.
another call
Esta nos
coming
llega
from
de la Comisión Federal
Mexico.
de Electricidad en México a propósito.
We also want to acknowledge the fact that you had an earthquake in Mexico City. We're truly sorry, and we hope that you're okay. And now the call is coming from Mexico Federal District.
gracias.
Thank you. Many firms and businesses in Mexico are administrated by people and not leaders, where the boss says, here, this is my place, and then
¿Cómo podríamos invertir para
I am served, and now, and sometimes they say, well, now this is the way they serve me. So how can we deal with this kind of model?
Okay, I'm not sure I have the answer to that, except probably assisting our leaders or the current leaders to understand the impact that their behavior has on them being successful in the marketplace, as well as assisting the leaders in understanding what it's doing to the employee base in terms of them being more successful. Those are always very delicate questions and very difficult questions, and sometimes it takes someone from the outside to be able to tell people that. However, that's probably the best place to start. You've got to start with the cost causer.
Gracias, señor Hoffmann.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. We're going to now go on with Module 2, where Mr. Hoffman will tell us some stories, some anecdotes about some real-life stories about organizations, intelligent organizations.
One of the ways people learn and cultures are created is through storytelling. During this segment, I'd like to share some stories with you, which I believe are examples of companies who are becoming learning organizations. The first story is about our company, the division I work in. Several years ago, and it already seems like once upon a time, we became very disenchanted with the training our employees received. In response to our mental model for successful training, we had developed a centralized university where our employees received the majority of their skills in product training. The university had a full-time staff of professors, trainers, course developers, instructional design specialists, full classroom and dormitory facilities, and the latest in presentation technology. And while at the end of the class, student surveys rated the classes good to excellent, significant knowledge and performance gaps existed when the student returned to the job. The coaches blamed the instructors blamed the coaches for not reinforcing the learning, and the students felt the material was good but didn't apply to their work. Hence, as part of a major re-engineering effort, the organization decided to re-look at the training process. As part of the normal re-engineering effort, benchmarking was conducted with multiple companies. Research was conducted on how people learned, how teams learned, what were the impediments to learning, what competencies were needed, how to establish master programs, etc. The emerging solution was revolutionary, at least for us. The first design theme adopted was recognition and active encouragement of personal growth and lifelong learning. This would require us to create an environment where each individual would be supported to continuously learn and expand their proficiencies and knowledge, personal and professional. The second theme, each individual is responsible for their own learning. Somewhere along the way, the coaches and students started to view ownership of learning as the responsibility of the instructors. The instructors and coaches do not own the responsibility for an individual learning or not learning. This meant we had to change systems and infrastructures to clarify ownership. A third design theme was how each individual learned may be different and may not learn equally well using the same methodology. Also, not every person had to attend the same courses, and not every person can be knowledgeable in everything. And the market should have a great deal to say about what an individual supporting them learns. Governing the adaptation of those themes into our organization were our vision and our values. Our vision to be the customer's best sales relationship, and our values included respect, integrity, learning, and teamwork, among others. Here are some of the changes which were made. The university was closed. Skills learning was transferred to the local branches. Product knowledge training was transferred to the product design and support organization. Second, a learning team was created in each branch. Team members include representatives from all job titles and job categories, and they are charged with establishing branch learning standards, defining skills, performance competencies, and conducting skills and proficiency reviews and exams. They are responsible for interpreting local market requirements and defining learning experiences for their teams to address the gaps. Next, each individual, based on the market they are serving and the account team that they are a member of, works with their coach to define a documented individual learning plan for the year. Completion of the learning plan is an objective for both the individual and the coach. And monies designated to support learning for that individual may not be used for other business purposes, only training. A learning manager was appointed in each branch. The learning manager is responsible for gathering branch requirements from the learning plans, buying and arranging learning experiences which address the needs and learning preferences, and creating customized learning experiences with coaches for specific needs. The coaches are responsible for delivery of or leading most learning experiences for their subordinates. This is at the heart of effective coaching and clarifies ownership and responsibility of employee development. All new employees, regardless of level in the organization, have an apprenticeship plan. The plan is individually designed by the employee and their coach. The apprenticeship is time-bound and proficiency-based. The learning team, together with the coach, approves retention of the apprentice. As you would expect, the change was dramatic and difficult. In those branches where the learning manager and learning teams changed their mental models, used systematic thinking, and took a leadership role, skills, retention, and knowledge levels rose. Creative, focused learning experiences began to address how the people preferred to learn versus one mode fits all. Time from which a need was identified to delivery was reduced exponentially. With thoughtful screening, the quality of the learning experiences rose with the introduction of outside experts. New subjects became more easily addressed. New local resources were tapped. For example, many teams are working with local universities or colleges to assist them in addressing learning requirements. Costs are down. The entire branch team has learned a great deal about learning, about capturing their aggregate knowledge, the branch brain, and becoming a learning team. The entire branch has become more successful. I wouldn't be telling you the truth if I told you all branches were successful. For some who have not let go of the old mental models, the transition has been very painful. On the other hand, it gives leaders the opportunity to demonstrate Nick and Oren's third organizing principle, ensure those who live the values and ideals of the organization are most rewarded and are the most satisfied. A second story is a story about the organization I work in also. Building on the 4 organizing principles for leaders from Nick Imperato and Orrin Harari, our organization has adopted a process of discovery which we started with the leadership and are cascading through our organization to jump the curve, becoming a learning organization focused on the future, on the next market. Hopefully the example will help some of the concepts come to life. Our purpose is to get our organization ready for the next market, to link success of our vision, values, and strategies, to create a reserve of the organization's intelligence, or corporate brain, and to define our business approach. We began about 6 months ago with the leadership team. The first step was an exercise to scan the market. Imagine all the imaginable. We began by defining what we believed our assumptions of the market over the next several years were. What would that next customer want? Who would be our competitors? What about the global influences on our customers? On us? What technologies are converging? The descriptions began defining for us what mental models we were using to look at our current environment, as well as how we were defining the future. While we've made significant progress, we are still wrestling with freeing ourselves from defining our conclusions using old models. Our second step was to look at what we were currently doing and asking, what are we doing? Is it connected to or helping us address any of our assumptions? While there's some synergies exist, we soon began to discover behaviors which were focused backwards versus forwards. Some were clearly counterproductive. Others were on track. Our third step is to ask ourselves, what is our current role and what will our new role have to be as leaders? And then we will be asking ourselves, if that is what the market expects, and that's the market and environment we expect to be operating in, what is our vision for what we want our organization to be? Do we need to relook at our values? What are our strategies? Finally, we will look at how all the functions are then aligned to ensure that they are supporting the vision we've defined for the markets we're going after. A subtending question which we look at near the end of each session is, do we have the talent and the capacity to make the change? A most difficult question. A third story. Recently, I had the opportunity to hear an executive from a large copier manufacturing company talk about a learning problem they had with one of their organizations. See if this sounds familiar to any of the problems you face in your companies. The story revolves around the repair technicians for the copier machines. With the rapid change in technology, the issue facing the company was keeping the repair technicians knowledgeable, keeping reference materials updated, and training new technicians quickly. Without continuous training, the technicians could not know all the new innovations being released in the latest machines, how to diagnose the problems, and how to complete repairs quickly. A review of the current process revealed that during the design phase, the engineers would detail the functionality of the parts, the CAD systems would generate schematics with specifications, the outputs were compiled into manuals, and the manuals were organized in a logical way to model diagnosing a problem. The mental model and the corporate model had been used successfully for many years. The difference being that the machines continued to become more complex and the manuals became very large, cumbersome documents, too cumbersome for the technicians to even take into the buildings with them on service calls. When a new technician was hired, they'd be sent off to training class for about 3 months to learn about the product line and learn how to diagnose problems. After finishing formal training, the new technicians would be assigned to work with a more experienced technician, a mentor, for a month. Finally, after 4 months, the new technicians would be assigned his or her territory or accounts to service. Then, with the changes in technology, there was a constant need for the technicians to be trained continuously, the manuals to be updated, and new diagnostic approaches to be defined. All of this took time, a lot of money, and had a negative effect on customer satisfaction. finding someone who could repair the latest model copier quickly. Analysis of the process determined several key elements. First, the diagnostic process presented in the manuals was sometimes incorrect. Corrections or revisions could take several months to be incorporated into the manuals. And with all the technology changes, the life cycle of the average correction was usually only 6 months. Second, while the manuals were presented in a logical flow, logical to somebody, if the technician followed them, it could take him or her many hours to complete a single repair. Since they had multiple service calls to make in a day, the technicians would not use the manuals. Instead, they resorted to intuition and experience to diagnose the problem. Third was training. While the company was spending great sums of money on developing continuation training, on travel to expenses to deliver the material, and on classroom time, the technicians did not seem to be learning. So soon the question changed to, how do the technicians learn? What to do? The company, which over the years has incorporated much of what Senge refers to in a learning organization and successfully has adopted total quality management, took an innovative approach, a new mental model, and decided to hire a group of anthropologists to follow the technicians for 6 months to learn how they learned, where learning took place, how they intuited solutions to problems. The goals were to capture the knowledge, creating the corporate brain, replicate the knowledge, and duplicate the process. The bottom line was to save time and money.